The anecdote go back and I think how the industry has developed. The very first issue of Tire Business in 1983, our headline at the top was "China may export tires to U.S. by next year."
How crazy is that? That seems so crazy that you got.
But they had up to that point, there hadn't been any Chinese, and somehow, just by fortune, that we got that story that broke right about that time. Or our reporter in Washington, Miles and Moore at the time, stumbled across it somehow, and we chased after it and got it.
Welcome to the Gain Traction Podcast, the official podcast for tire business. I am Mike Edge, your host, and I have the privilege of interviewing the tire dealers, shop owners, counter sales reps, technicians, industry executives, and other thought leaders of our industry. This episode is brought to you by Tread Partners. Tread Partners is the leading digital marketing agency that specializes in digital marketing for multi-location tire and auto repair shops. Tread Partners works with clients that have hundreds of locations down to 5 locations. Get a professional, unbiased opinion and let Tread Partners review what you're doing. It starts with a simple conversation. To contact Tread Partners, visit treadpartners.com. So let's get started. Hey folks, welcome to the Gain Traction Podcast, the official podcast for tire business. So today I have Bruce Davis, the legendary editor and writer for Tire Business. And Bruce, I couldn't be more honored that you said yes to be on the podcast, especially after you just retired after 45 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you for thinking of me and inviting me, and it's an honor to be part of this. What you're building with the Gain Traction podcast.
Well, we love being part of Tire Business, but I love the fact that you were with Tire Business. I mean, you are the beginning.
And before day one, yeah.
Exactly. So I think, everybody knows who Tire Business is, but let's get to know Bruce a little bit. By the way, Don wrote another great article on you. I don't know if you saw it yet.
I saw that. I was totally taken aback by it and overwhelmed. The staff took time out to,
Well, Don DeTour, he couldn't speak more highly of you. Obviously, he's the one that recommended that interview, and he was hoping that you would do this even after you retired.
Yeah.
We could rope you in one more meeting. But talk about, because I love your story. You've told me before, but for our audience's sake, you get out of college, went to Ohio University, and you get this job, and you thought it was going to be what, short term or something like that?
Yeah, well, actually, what's kind of funny is that I'd finished college. I'd done an internship in Chicago for a year. I'd come back to my hometown, Shelby, and I was just bouncing around for the summer, getting my resume ready. And I get a call out of the blue from one of the guys from college. We'd worked together on the college magazine, Bob Grace. And he said, "Hey, there's an opening. There's an opening here at the place I'm working if you want to interview." And honestly, though, I had just sprained my ankle playing basketball, and I had to beg off and said, "Can you give me a couple of weeks because I can't walk?" So we set up the interview, and I got up there, and it was Dave Zelasco's dad, and like I said, he saw something in me that he liked, and took a chance on me, and so then it was mid-August of '80. I started there with Rubber was then Rubber and Plastics News.
And that was in '80, but then 2 years later, you were surprised that you got asked to be part of Tire.
Toward the end of '82, Ernie, who had been in the industry, some of the old timers in the industry will know Ernie. He had been with the Modern Tire Dealer, and he'd been a public relations with B.F. Goodrich, and he had pitched at one point starting this thing called Rubber and Plastics News, a weekly or a biweekly newspaper for the rubber manufacturing side of the business, and he was told it would never fly, and so he left and mortgaged his house and put everything he had into it, and came with a whisker of going down the tubes, and he managed to just get over the hump with it. And a few years after he started it, Crane came down and looked at it and said it would be a perfect complement to Automotive News, which is one of their flagship publications. And so by the time I joined them, it was several years already under the Crane wing. And but he had always had the passion. He wanted to get back into the tire distribution, the tire dealer side of the business. And so 2 years after I had joined them, he took me aside and he said, "I want to start this, and I want to go bi-weekly." He wanted to, stick it to the monthlies by coming out every other week. That was at the time, that was the mindset of, get the news out every other week.
Yeah.
And so he just to go with it. And so I had about 6 or 8 months to research the project and come up with the idea and the concept and the look, and we launched in April of '83.
And how old were you?
83, I would have been 28 or 27 going on 28. Yeah.
That's so awesome. That had to feel like, I mean, considering you'd only been out of college a few years, you were really feeling as an entrepreneurial project. So that's kind of cool in of itself, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I was glad that I'd taken the magazine journalism, a couple courses in that, because that prepared me for setting up that kind of stuff, and coming up with a look and a feel and a whole persona of a publication.
Yeah, but didn't you when you got out of college, you were originally thinking like, hey, I'm going to go be a journalist. I'm going to be a reporter for a major publication, like a New York Times type thing.
That's every journalist graduate his dream, is to get to the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or whatever, or really on anything yet. And this was something that just dropped in my lap, and I thought, well, it's a great opportunity, gain some experience, put some money in the bank to give it 3 or 4 years, and then go look for a real job. And but within, say, a couple of years, I got one promotion, and then 2 years in on that, I got this whole project dropped in my lap, and that was 83. So we launched that in 83, and then 2 years later, after that, an opportunity came up, and that's when I got posted to Germany, which is what I always wanted to do.
But it was still with Crane, right?
Still with Crane.
Yeah.
I was a foreign exchange student out of high school, spent a year in Austria at a boarding school, and so got fairly fluent in German. That was my minor in college. And but at the same time, we started tire business. Crane, or Ernie and his group, bought European Rubber Journal, which is a monthly for the European industry. And they decided that it was called European Rubber Journal, but like 2/3 of their members or readership was in England. They said, we got to figure out a way to make it more European. And obviously Germany was the biggest market and had the biggest advertisers and the biggest manufacturers. And I sat there and I wrote basically a definition of what you needed, knowing we had just started the tire business project and realizing someone else was going to get the job that I really wanted. And then they looked into the whole cost of everything and decided it'd be cheaper to put me over there and less disruptive and find somebody to replace me back here. So in the end, I actually wrote my own job description.
You didn't tell me that. That's funny as heck. I didn't realize that you were fluent in German or almost before you got there.
Yeah. That was, yes. I lived a year in Austria, and then it was my minor in college, and had a fair degree of fluency. I mean, it was getting back. It took about a year to really get back to fluency once I was over there. But
now, did you get married before you left, or over there?
Yeah,
or how? Okay.
Met my wife in Frankfurt. She was working for Jones Day, the big Cleveland law firm. One of their partners was tasked with leaving their Paris office and opening up an office in Germany. And she spoke German because her mother was from Austria. And so they came over, and they came into the office suite that I was in for about a month. And so we met each other, and then she ended up rooming with another woman there who had a business on her own, and we kind of just got to know each other through that commonality.
That's very cool. Well, what's your favorite German food?
Favorite German food? It's got to be good. A really good schnitzel. You can't really. A good Wiener schnitzel is hard to get.
That's a good one. Yeah, just curious. My mind races that way towards food sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, so what happened next? You ended up spending 13 years there, and then you came back, and
So we got 13 years, and got to see the whole fall of the Berlin Wall, which was.
Oh yeah, you were there for that.
Oh yeah.
That's so. It's so easy to think, because I was in high school at that time, and I could still remember how big a deal that was. Because of the whole East-West thing. But you were there literally when the line was still there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How tense was it then? Because I don't think our society, if you're not our age group, you don't know how intense it was back then.
The whole lead up to that was pretty wild. I mean, because in Frankfurt there's a huge military complex there, and I mean everyone was on absolute highest alert. I mean they had sandbags up around some of the they were on high alert because nobody knew what was going to happen.
Well, nobody understands how significant it was, but I mean, what was it like for you guys being there when Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall? I mean, that had to be huge.
That was, and everybody's going, oh, he's pushing the envelope. He's really, he's lighting the fuse on something. And in the end, I always tell people it was like, everybody thought this Iron Curtain impenetrable, and it turned out to be a house of cards. And once somebody found the right card to push, the whole thing just collapsed and the whole thing crumbled.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And even while you were there, you didn't realize it until after the fact that it was that House of Cards, I guess.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Because
Because there's so many. One of my favorite eras of movies. My wife's not as big a fan as I am, but I love the whole spy movies of Berlin, and you always had the East-West thing and the intensity there.
Spy came in from the cold, and
yes, and people switching sides and stuff like that. Oh man, that I just put that together, that you were there before the wall went down, and then you were there after the wall went down. Man, it had to feel like what was it, like a floodgate of freedom for people? I mean,
it was. I mean, that first, people, but some of the stories that came out were so good. Like a lot of people coming out, and first time I'd ever seen bananas, and
you're lying. Are you serious?
Yeah. So a lot of East Germans would come across, and they'd always heard about bananas, but never actually had one in their hand, and that sort of thing. Or the one that always got me was this guy who came into one of the libraries in Berlin and said, "I've got a book that's 45 years overdue."
That's funny. That's great. Oh my gosh. All right. So after all of that, you come back in what, the early 90s?
Well, actually, 97. Yeah, my son.
Nice. Okay, mid 90s there.
My son was born in 96, and we came back at the end of 97, beginning of 98. And at that time, then I was splitting my time between Tire Business and Rubber News. That changed sometime in early 2000s, and I went full time back with Tire Business. So it was kind of
was that complicated to write for two different? I mean, for you, kind of just being in sync.
There's a different mindset, and I tried, and both editors tried to feed me stuff that could be used in both publications, so I wouldn't be spending time one or the other. But yeah, you do have a manufacturing audience and a distribution audience, so you do have two very different audiences, and you have to take it into consideration. And you can the basic of the story will be the same, but the lead will be different, and there'll also be some tweaks to it that would apply to that.
Well, so one of the things that I think you came up with was the Global Tire Report. What year was that for Tire Business?
That was 85 was the very first one. And that was one that might even be before Tire Business. I think one of the banks or companies like that, markets research companies, had put out a report one year and had the top 25 tire companies worldwide. And that's pretty interesting, and wrote a story about it. And I think I came back the next year, and I thought, well, nobody does this on an annual basis. I said, well, how am I going to update this information year after year? And eventually started gathering any bits of information I could take with me. And when I moved to Germany, that all went with me in a big steamer trunk. And when I got there, I had a lot of time on my hands because I was totally new in Germany, and nobody who knew I was, and the publication was not all that well known. And so I spent all of my time writing letters and sending faxes and calling people and trying to get on people's mailing lists and invitation lists. And so I had plenty of time on my hands. So I went through that box and started sorting everything out. And I said, finally, I realized, we got enough here that we could publish something and be credible with it. Yeah. So then I had to sell it to both the editors and publishers of Rubber Plastics News and European Rubber Journal, and by this time Tire Business. And we all had a big powwow and agreed, let's do it. And back then,
I can't imagine the world without that now. You know what I mean? Because you're the one that decided, hey, I mean, it's got to feel pretty cool that, that information is just kind of, it was just out there, but not together. And then you were like, hey, we gotta, everybody wants to know this stuff anyway. Yeah.
And, then you fast forward it to, now. And that's one of the things that I always feel most proud of, is that when you pick up a Michelin annual report or a Bridgestone or a Goodyear annual report, it's our figures that they cite as to where they rank in the world. And, it's they always fall back on our information. And, those early days, though, I mean, trying to get information, because we're trying to get stuff on companies behind the Iron Curtain, companies in China, and all that kind of stuff. And the only way to get through to some of those companies was by telex. And 90% of the people listening probably don't know what the heck a telex is. I had to learn how to send telexes and just decipher them when they came back.
Well, honestly, I don't know what a telex is. What is it?
It's basically, you create a strip that has all little dots, and it's almost like Morse code on paper. And the receiving end, you send that out, and then the receiving end gets that, and then runs it through their machine and decodes it. Basically, it's like a coded message going out and coming back.
So we're talking late 80s, early 90s they were using this technology?
Oh yeah. Mid 80s, late 80s, yeah.
Into places like China and Russia.
Russia, yeah. And
wow.
The fax communication was still kind of rudimentary. Of course, there was no digital communication. And I remember one time trying to get a hold of a company, one of these German tire companies. I remember I sat there, I dialed their number. I think it was like 72 times in a row. It would just go dead. And finally, one time it rang. And somebody picked up, and I started to talk, and they said, "Can't help you," and hung up.
You're like, oh man, I just. Well, I see you got the book behind you there. In the tire business, the book, the annual.
Oh yeah, they're in the corner. Yeah. That's another thing that's developed over all the stats we do throughout the year. We do the leading commercial dealerships, leading retreaders, the brands issue, the marketing groups, then the largest retailers, and there's a couple others along the way. But then that's just we bundle all that information into one big statistical album.
Even a guy like me podcasting for the industry, I love the book. I mean, it's always a reference point, and that one stays on my desk annually. You know what I mean? Till the next one comes out.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, it's you guys have really contributed a lot to the industry. I mean, if you had to say anything in particular, because I think I already know the answer, but why should you be if you're listening to this podcast, why should you be a subscriber to Tire Business?
Truly, we treat the industry like a business newspaper, whether it's Business Week or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. We treat it as a news. So we always approach all our stories like business reporters. We dig into it. We try to get the information. We try to be factual about it, and I think we have a wealth of background information so that it's when the mergers come up or when something happens, we can bring in that background information that makes sense and gives it perspective. And I think that's what separates us is those kind of things of sticking to the news and giving perspective. Yeah.
I think that's huge. And then it sinks in well with the fact that you guys are kind of the data managers. Like, you're always providing the data, that big annual reports and things, but then you really connect in such a unique way. You're not just with the manufacturer or the distributor or the retailer. You really cover all three aspects extremely well.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody has a place in tire business. And even if you're a dealer, you want to know what the manufacturers are doing or the leading distributors or your distributors doing. Yeah. And you may be uncovering some information that everybody needs to know.
Yeah. And just an anecdote to go back and I think how the industry has developed. The very first issue of Tire Business in 1983, our headline at the top was "China may export tires to U.S. by next year."
How crazy is that? That seems so crazy.
They had up to that point there hadn't been any Chinese, and somehow just by fortune, that we got that story that broke right about that time. Or our reporter in Washington, Miles and Moore at the time, stumbled across it somehow, and we chased after it and got it.
So, what was the publication? Was the publication always the same size the way you do the print now?
I should have dragged that out. It's in another box somewhere. It's always been a broadsheet, but initially it was 8 pages. It was like an 8-page newsletter that went out no advertising. Of course, an 8-page no advertising newsletter is the equivalent of about a 20-page magazine with advertising. And the first 3 or 4 months that we were in, probably longer than that, I was the only full-time editorial person on the staff. We borrowed obviously heavily from the Crane portfolio, the rubber news and automotive news and Ad Age, and anything that Crane put out, I scoured and tried to figure out if it had an angle that we could use.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's another thing with Tire Business that we think is that we do have those other resources within Crane Communications that we tap into from time to time and have access.
Well, and I would say a lot of your audience for Tire Business knows automotive news. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, and Auto Week used to be part of our group. Of course, that was sold a few years back, but that was always a nice one to have too.
See, I love the size of the magazine. I love the print. I mean, I read it online every day almost, but I mean, I just love, I like that big.
It's just in front of you and you flop it out and.
Yeah, it's just different, and it distinguishes itself on my desk, or even if you're in a tire dealer shop and it's laying on one of those coffee tables or whatever, it distinguishes itself from any other thing you're going to read in the industry.
And interesting, just as an aside, tire business, we discovered our audience, we're actually adding back in print issues. Like 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big push, digital, which we are in the digital realm and we're doing a lot. But the pressure was to cut costs because of printing costs went up and mailing costs went up.
Yeah.
Was to cut, we were 26 issues a year, and but that kind of fallen back to 24, 25 even then. They cut back to 20 or even 18. And now we're adding back. We're going to be back to 20, 21 or 22 issues this year because the audience supports it. The advertisers, we had, more advertising than we could squeeze into, 18 or 20 issues.
Yeah.
So we're actually going back up in print because this audience still appreciates a print product.
I think people do appreciate just what you guys put out in general, the information. I mean, I don't know that you can exist in the industry without reading the publication or being part of it.
I appreciate saying that. What's that?
Well, I mean, I know that from my own. Like I said, I keep the book on my desk all year long just for a reference point,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, well, where else am I going to go to get that? You know what I mean? It's like you guys put things together that Google doesn't even have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I suppose, yeah.
And that's,
I think it goes back to almost the very first issue of Tire Business as we started publishing import and export statistics, import mostly.
yeah,
And at the time it was okay to do, but over time we've just seen that we were able to track the history then of how imports have become, the bulk of the industry. How that's
oh yeah. And now the fact that you have that history, it is that reference point makes it even more valuable. Like, yeah, that's awesome. So I give you the proverbial question. I'm sure you've gotten this a million times. What are you doing in retirement now that you've reached it?
Yeah. We're going to do a lot of traveling. My wife and I, we love traveling, and we had a trip already planned for this September, going back to Austria and Italy. Her mother was from Austria, and so she and her brother were going to rendezvous over there, and they're going to do some genealogy and a deep dig into their
Awesome.
family history. And I still have some colleagues and friends from when I was there as a student, and a couple of work colleagues or work friends in Vienna. I'm going to hook up over there as well. So
that's fantastic. So another question: are you still capable of speaking fluent German?
It comes back pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that when I get there, I have little trouble understanding. It's just the vocabulary of what you lose and what you're thinking of, but it comes back pretty rapidly.
So just to give the audience a little bit better idea who you are, you had mentioned this to me when we talked. What's a quote that you like to live by, or a mantra?
Yeah, I can't really say there's any one single quote that I come back to, but from an early on, I don't know where I picked it up, whether it was through the professors in college or probably through Ernie Alaska, who hired me because he was the same kind, that never be satisfied when the products, because in journalism, the product that comes out is a slice of time. Everything that goes in the magazine, you wish you could have spent more time working on. And
that's interesting.
So you always want to know that it can always be better. And from year to year to year, when we put out these special reports, I always go back and look at last year's and say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Where did we fall down? What can we make it better? And I think just that has always been the thing, is never be satisfied. Always, always, always strive to be that, even if it's only 1% better, that's what you look for.
I love that. I really do. And then on another personal level, what's your favorite movie?
Thought about that one time. I got two that, and this is the way I look at it in terms of, if they come on TV, I'll stop whatever I'm doing and watch them, no matter if it's 10 minutes in or 10 minutes to go. Shawshank Redemption is one of them, and then a lot of people know that one. And the other one I love is a movie called Time Bandits, which very few people know about, but I think it's a brilliant movie back in the night. It's a Terry Gilliam movie from the early 80s.
And that's briefly what it has something to do with God's creation and time portals or something like that.
The premise is, when God created the universe, that at the very end he ran out of time, and there were some little holes in the universe that you could slip through time. And so this rogue band of not angels, but some of the helpers in heaven, and they steal the map with all the holes in it and plan a intergalactic, intertime crime spree to jump in and out of time and go and steal the most valuable things that have ever been created in time, and then jump into the time hole and go somewhere else.
That's interesting. I have to watch that one. I don't know it, but that Shawshank Redemption. I watched my wife and I, this is funny. I'll never forget because you kind of sometimes this is obviously before Netflix or any of that stuff, and you were renting movies from Blockbuster or whatever when that movie came out, because it came out I think in the mid '90s. I don't know if we had just gotten married or whatever, but it. I remember we went to the movie theater and we didn't even know what we were going to watch. We just like, let's just go see what's available. And we saw one and I said, let's go see that one. And she goes, do you know anything about it? And I go, no, we're going to roll the dice. And we both came out of there just obviously, enthusiastic about the movie, because that is literally a classic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
like every time I watch it, you always pick up something new, some little nuance about the movie you didn't realize. And I think what I like about it is it's credible. It's a story that could actually have happened. And it's
credible because bad things still happen to good people while they struggle through them. So you love that aspect of that movie, and then obviously the ending's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But there was that little lesson about hope.
Yeah,
and because Morgan Freeman, he was the institutionalized guy if there ever was one.
Yeah. And the story about it is that ending, originally they ended it with him just not knowing. And apparently they had some trial audiences, and they said it was too dark. People didn't like the ending, so they added that little bit of him.
I didn't know that.
Long distance, reunion coming in. So they added that glimmer of hope at the end.
I think that's a great idea. I think if they would have left it blank like that, because you did feel good for him.
Yeah.
And he got on the bus and the fresh air through the window and just realizing he was free, and all he had to do was get across the line. And then you see him meet on the beach, and it was like he made it.
And then the personal recollection is that it was filmed in Mansfield, Ohio, which is just, I grew up in Shelby, which is about 10 miles from Mansfield. I probably grew up about 8 miles from where they filmed most of the movie. It's in the old Mansfield Reformatory, which was originally for juveniles, I think 18 and under, and eventually it moved in. It transitioned into a full-blown prison.
So does that building still exist?
The structure still exists. All the offices were all that was filmed. And then they do have, I think, one wing where they still have the prison cells, tiny little things, man.
The cells.
Yeah. But the cells from the movie were actually built in a warehouse nearby because of the nature of finding one that had a wall where you could dig out through. So.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's until you told me, I didn't realize where it had been filmed, but that's right next door to you guys.
Yeah. And they have, it's open as a museum, or it's a tour. They do Shawshank tours. You can go there. Especially at Halloween, you can spend the night. There's supposed to, it's a lot of the guides there will tell you it's haunted, and they have, they've seen it.
It's always funny that people want to scare themselves. They want to put themselves in a situation like that. Well, I got to tell you, I'm thrilled that you said yes to do this interview. I'm thrilled that you were on here, and I really wish you the best, Bruce, in retirement, and I hope that I get to see you again.
Yeah, you had mentioned something about having a poignant story or something like that, and this is not particularly tied to tire business, but when we went back about the wall coming down. At the time, I was friends in Germany with a guy named Mark Vaughn, who eventually ended up working for Auto Week. At the time, he was a freelancer working for a lot of different people. And he got an assignment from Auto Week to do a story about the car factories of Eastern Europe. And this was like just after the wall had come down. And so there were still, you still had a lot of border controls and things like that. So they arranged for him, GM sent him a Corvette to drive around to go see the factories in Czechoslovakia, Poland, East Germany, and a Corvette, a white Corvette, and they flew it in from Detroit. Supposedly they had converted it so they could run on unleaded gas, because I found out there's like almost no unleaded gas. In the end, though, it turned out they hadn't converted it, because we took it to a local dealership first and said, no, this still runs on unleaded. So somewhere I found a map of the 3 gas stations in Poland that had unleaded gas. So we had to we had to plan our route depending on wherever the gas stations were where we could get gas. And
that's funny.
And it's funny thing, but the thing that always got me was, so we pull up to the Czech border, we go through the German border, and we pull up, and halfway to where the actual border was, there's a guide standing out with a machine gun. We pull up and hand him our papers, and he reads our papers, and he kind of looks down the road back to where on the Czech side, and he looks down the right way like that, and he stands back and gives us a universal sign for light him up.
Are you serious? That's so funny. That is great. He wanted to see you burn rubber. That is great. Oh my gosh. And you're just thinking, what was his reference point for that question? You know,
I know,
obviously
you've probably seen that car in a magazine and never seen one in real life.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's a great one to end on. I tell you, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I appreciate you being on here, and
my pleasure.
And I really genuinely hope to see you again. And I know you may end up doing some freelancing for tire business, so I hope you enjoy that as well. That's my
plan. Yeah.
All right. Well, God bless you, and good luck in retirement.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate your interest in doing this.
Thank you. To all our listeners, thank you for being part of the Gain Traction Podcast. We are grateful for you. If you'd like to find more podcasts like this, please visit gaintractionpodcast.com. If you'd like to make a guest recommendation, please email me at mike@treadpartners.com. This episode has been powered by Tread Partners, the leader in digital marketing for multi-location tire and auto repair shops. To learn more about Tread Partners, visit treadpartners.com.